Oh, and by the way, just in case you were in fact interested in seeing this movie, I'm sure it's not too hard to find on Netflix or Popcorn Flicks or wherever the hell. It's fairly, you know, common with other cheaply made fantasy movies such as the uh, you know, uh, those types of movies that have a lot of scenes spliced in from other fantasy movies. To name one that, in fact, was somewhat a confusing choice because when I went to look up this movie when I went to look up this movie, right, there was Sword of the Sorcerer and um, the Sword and the Sorceress or whatever, right? And I was like, well, which one's the sequel? Because I couldn't figure it out, right? And I had to go online. And I realized that neither one of them has anything to do with the other. Sword and the Sorceress is actually originally called The Warrior and the Sorceress with David Carradine. And I saw a trailer for that, and I was initially interested in it after hearing that it had David Carradine in it. David Carradine in it. But when I saw the trailer, all I saw were scenes of David Carradine wielding a sword spliced in with about, because half the trailer is just scenes of him wielding a sword, and the other half of it mixed in this trailer is just scenes spliced in from other fucking movies like Deathstalker and Wizards of the Lost, Kingdom and shit. And I believe that was the name of it. And it's just like half this movie looks genuine, and when you have a movie that only looks half genuine, it just kind of fucking ruins the whole thing, right? And I saw the trailer for The Sword and the Sorcerer, and that genuinely looked, well, genuine, it looked good. The trailer made it look fantastic, right? So, and then it turns out to be this huge piece of crap. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe if I can get uh, to my popcorn flicks and it's still on there, I'll have to watch the Sword and the Sorceress with David Carradine. But I don't know, if there's too many scenes spliced in there from other movies that I know, it's not gonna hold my attention for too long. I'm not gonna watch that crap, When I can clearly point out multiple scenes from Deathstalker, and actually, you know what? Hold on. I'm gonna look this up. I want to see what comes first because maybe, just maybe, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I did, in fact, watch Deathstalker, of course, growing up, which is a whole nother thing that I'll get into later on. But what I wanted to mention while I'm looking this up is the 1982 movie of The Sword and the Sorcerer, in which I watched. At the very end, has the gall to say, see, I think his name was Talon or whatever. Yeah, the main hero's name is like Talon or something like that. See Talon in his very next upcoming adventure, coming soon, And it was, Tales of an Ancient Empire or something like that, right? Hang on. I can look that up too. But yeah, it was Tales of an Ancient Empire. Yep, that's what it was. A movie, mind you, that would not come out until 2010, on a shitty release for the fucking Sci-Fi Channel and starring Kevin Sorbo. Which I did look into this. So, a movie that was, initially canceled because The Sword and the Sorcerer was a huge flop, inevitably got its sequel in 2010 for direct-to-video and for display on the Sci-Fi Channel, starring Kevin Sorbo. So, you know what? There's that. Let me sword. Sorceress. Hang on. Okay. So, The Warrior and the Sorceress, 1984. Okay? Let's find out Deathstalker here. Just to be fair, pretty sure Deathstalker came first. Come on. Really? Yep, 1983, by 1 year. This was really not an uncommon thing, believe it or not, in the 80s as far as fantasy movies go, because there wasn't really a high enough demand for them in the all-around public. I mean, there were people for these genres of movies, but in general, they didn't end up making a whole lot of money. And so what they would do back in the day would be to take scenes and splice them from movies into other fantasy movies. And the original title for the David Carradine movie was the Warrior and the Sorceress. Just weird. And I guess they later renamed it for some reason to The Sword and the Sorceress. Not sure why, but yeah, there were a few of these movies that would to be cheap, would splice in scenes from other movies into their movies, and I don't honestly know why no one got sued. Because nobody cared enough, right? Yeah, so I guess I wanted to go over that a little bit in this follow-up video. Next video, I think I'm going to do Hawk the Slayer, and eventually I will talk about Deathstalker. Talk about Barbarian Queen as well, and of course Conan. As I go on my tangent about fantasy films, I will be reviewing other films that aren't fantasy flicks, but I thought, coming hot off the heels of my D&D stuff, I might as well do this, like, fantasy marathon genre from, like, back in the 80s to 90s sort of deal, so, because these are kind of the movies I grew up with as far as fantasy was concerned. My parents, back in the day, were not too big into caring what I watched. As far as an R rating, I would oftentimes go into the movie rental store, back in the days of VHS, and just pick the coolest fucking thing I'd see. And oftentimes it would turn out to be something like Deathstalker, where, and here's another thing with Deathstalker, where you have 4 movies, by the way, of Deathstalker. All the art is just awesome. The artwork on the cover, and man, as a kid, that just draws your eye, you know. And realistically, more times than not, the art has nothing to do with the movie. That's just a horrible ploy, you know. So I'd go in there and I'd rent my VHS, you know, and you know, nobody cared that I was renting rated R movies. Not even the owner of the fucking store. I mean, I knew him, so yeah, not even the owner of the store cared, and so you know, it wasn't like I wasn't introduced to violence before then at an even earlier age. You know, while other kids were watching Disney movies, I was watching Guyver Bio Boosted Armor. And you know, I think I turned out pretty okay, you know. But anyways, yeah. So just wanted to make this quick follow-up video. Um, didn't mean to go off on a huge tangent, but yeah. Next time, a movie with a even lower budget, uh, made right. Hawk the Slayer. I think eventually I'll have to talk about Dragon Slayer and Crawl too. Two other movies that kind of. Well, I hadn't seen Dragon Slayer during my childhood, but I wish I had because that movie is fantastic. But Crawl, yeah, it definitely influenced me. Holy shit, that is a huge budget for the Sword and the Sorcerer. Yeah. Wow. What a travesty.